It's time for Reason.
When they do it, they have a justification. When we do it, then it's a terrible, horrible thing because we have to have different standards for different people based on their ideology, because we have to have that grace built into the progressive mindset as opposed to a conservative where you're already terrible, so if you just do that, then you're just exposing who you really are. It doesn't matter that a progressive is actually a very hateful, bitter individual. When they lash out, then it's justified and it's actually okay.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
When I get on my knees and pray, we don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 of the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. What up? Welcome in. Happy Wednesday to you. It is a hashtag freedom-loving Wednesday. Boy, oh boy, what a night it was when it came to the elections. We will talk about some of the primary elections that happened last night. Good news. Good news on those fronts. I'm still waiting, by the way. I'm still waiting for the big blue wave. I'm waiting for it. And I'm starting to learn, and I'm starting to realize that the only way that we're going to see a big blue wave happen across this nation, even here in the state of Kansas, is if we end up having shenanigans or some kind of dirty politics pulled during the election to try and upset Republicans in that process. Other than that, it ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. We are not going to see a blue wave in any way, shape, or form. It's really not going to change a whole lot from what we've seen. From the status quo, from the current lineup, from the current makeup of our Congress, it's really not going to change a whole lot. We'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit when it comes to the primary in a few states last night, including California, kind of the big one, where Republicans may have an opportunity to, squeak in a couple of more, or at least have a little bit more influence in the California elections, which we have not been able to have in a really long time. So that's coming up here in just a bit. I do have to start this off, though, today with this story. Now, as you know, some of you may know this, some of you may not know this. My number one biggest phobia in the entire world, number one biggest phobia, the biggest thing I am fearful of and scared to death of in the entire world is, well, hippies. No, I'm kidding. No, my biggest phobia that I have in the entire world is snakes. Big number one fear that I have in the entire world is snakes. I do not care. I mean, come on. I grew up in Colorado. I do not care about mountain lions. I don't care about bears. I don't care about any type of. Spiders don't bother me. Snakes are the biggest fear that I have in the entire world. And I don't know if I should say that publicly because then someone's going to try and pull a prank on me with a snake. I am scared to death of snakes. I do not care if it's a tiny little garter snake in your garden or if it's some kind of rattler snake. I don't care. The biggest phobia in the entire world. And you see the story, I'm sure you've been hearing it on the news and watching it on TV. I had to Cake TV on this one, but that man that was bitten at Cheney Lake by the venomous snake while he was swimming in the lake. This is why I am scared to death to go to many lakes. I'm just saying, I love going out into the wilderness. I mean, obviously, if I had the choice, I would live out in the middle of nowhere and kind of live off the land and do my own thing. I would do that, but I would also have censored bombs set off in the yard to where if there is a slithery thing nearby, it would blow it up. I would usually walk outside with a double-barreled shotgun or some type of flamethrower to destroy the thing because it is the most ridiculous, absurd animal ever on the face of the earth. It drives me nuts. I cannot. No. That was the one benefit. I'm not a big fan of Colorado. I'm not a big fan of living in the mountains. I mean, it's beautiful. It's great. It's good to visit. Just I don't necessarily like to live there just because of the people that are there and kind of moving there and kind of the change in dynamic when it comes to the area. But nonetheless, one of the big perks of living up in the mountains was the fact that the altitude was so high that there were no snakes. There just were no snakes that actually lived there. And instead, we had to worry about, mountain lions and bears, which I can deal with. That's fine. You just make a bunch of noise and you don't make eye contact with them and you're just fine. They don't, it was kind of scary because every once in a while you'd hear the story about kids that would be missing from the bus stop because in the mountains for whatever reason, because there's tiny little dirt roads that go up, 2 miles up onto the top of the mountain, and the buses weren't going to go up there, especially during the wintertime, but they would drop the kids off at the bus stop. And there were stories about once a year, about a kindergarten preschool child that would end up missing, and they would find him because a mountain lion would have gotten him. And it's a scary ordeal, and it's sad, but still, I would take a mountain lion over a snake. Yes, over a tiny little itty bitty snake. I don't know. My biggest phobia, I've always had that phobia my entire life. I will never get over that phobia. The only way I will ever get over that phobia is if I walk outside with very large weapons. Thank God for the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment to protect yourself from the government, from intruders, and from snakes. God bless very large guns, because that way I never have to deal with snakes. I can't deal. I can't deal. If I ever found one, if it found its way into the house, I would probably end up having to burn the entire house down. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. The fact that we had this story, they had to have 5 doses of the anti-venom pumped into this guy, and if you saw the pictures, it's actually a really scary ordeal where the whole arm was all purple and it was all swollen, and it was just nope. It just reminds me of the fact that there are snakes in the area, and you need to look around every corner as if there is a terrorist there waiting with a strapped bomb ready to blow you up around every corner when you're outside. And that's the type of awareness that you need to have when you're actually dealing with snakes. You ever watch the show 24? And you're always trying to stop the terrorists from blowing up the city kind of thing, or blowing up a bus, or blowing up whatever, and doing some kind of harm. And that's the concern that you need to have 24/7 when your alertness is up. And I've always used 24 as like an instructional tool to be able to save the day whenever that time arises. That's the kind of approach that we need to take when it comes to snakes. I'm just saying. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. It is a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. I thought I'd start you off that way with my phobia of snakes. It's just sad. I'm glad that the guy's okay. 5 doses of the anti-venom. Ugh. That's a brutal way to actually go and enjoy the lake with your family. And as the story said, that after the snake had bit him, then started traveling off to the wife and the kids. And no, not going to deal with that. That's not something that I'm okay with in any way, shape, or form. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program today, coming up on the program, we have Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell at 7:30 today, and that is our one and only guest. The rest of the show is open up to you to talk about whatever you want to. There's a lot to talk about locally and nationally that I do want to try and get to today, the best that we possibly can. As I mentioned, the primary election, plus talking about the primaries. If you've noticed, I've not talked a whole lot lately about this Ron Estes versus Ron Estes primary that we're going to be going up with here in the 4th Congressional District in the Wichita area. And the individual Ron M Estes trying to challenge Congressman Ron Estes in that Republican primary. I have not said anything about this yet because I've been trying to do some personal digging to try and find out who this Ron Estes is, because it's been very vague. And I found some information. We found some intel on it, and we'll give you that information on the show, who this guy really is, the background of him and his wife, and what's been going on with that campaign, and the underlying reason on why we think that this individual may have tried to actually register for the Republican Party last minute without a whole lot of contact information, without a whole lot of intel on what he's doing, the platform, his website. If you notice, his website's only one page. One page. It's only the homepage with the press release of him announcing that he's going to run for the seat. That's it. Nothing more. No platform, no bio, no information, nothing. So it's a very sketchy, very odd, very circumstantial situation. So we'll talk about that because I've been trying to do some digging, trying to find some intel on this individual, and we found some stuff. And it's not necessarily what you would want to hear or what you would expect to hear. So we'll talk about that on the show today as well. Plus, I know a lot of individuals like to discuss about the law enforcement and law enforcement abuse and so on and so forth. There's a new story out about police drones and the fact that the Sedgwick County Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department may be using drones when it comes to searching for individuals or for certain situations. And is that good? Is that bad? Would you be in support of that or not? Apparently, they have 4 or 5 drones already, and they're going to be using these a little bit more frequently. So we'll talk about the use of law enforcement and their drones today as well. Plus, I kind of give you the rundown for the show today. Plus, Google last week, and it was only up for about a day, and people called it out on it, but as we were getting close to the primaries, this may have actually affected, I don't know, it may have affected, may not have affected the primary election that happened last night in California, as the California Republican Party, if you search them, or if you searched the word Nazism, would come up and say that that was the ideology of the California Republican Party. Someone, whether it was Google, whether it was a sabotage, whether it was a hack, whatever it was, ended up tying up Nazism and the California Republican Party together when you would do a Google search for one or the other, and it would come up with a brief description and what Nazism actually looks like, and the fact that they're trying to sabotage the Republican Party, which really makes sense. Honestly, it really makes sense when you think about what Google just did a few weeks ago when they changed their entire motto of what they did as a moral standard for the company. Instead of saying that we have to be morally straight, that now their motto is we just need to do the right thing, which, as you know, doing the right thing could be very vague in the terms of a progressive who actually wants to try and change and alter the minds of individuals. That doing the right thing could be trying to, quote unquote, expose the Republican Party for the Nazism that it promotes, and so on and so forth. So we'll talk about that coming up a little bit later as well. Plus all your phone calls. I want to hear from you. If you're on social media, you're on the Facebook Live, you can talk there as well. Leave me a comment, ask a question. We do have the Facebook Live up and running, so lots to get to today. It's going to be a lot of fun on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. Let's take a break. We'll get your calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
23 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, kicking off your Wednesday morning. It is halfway through the week. It's hump day, whatever you want to call it. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's make it a good one today. What do you say? Carpe diem all over this place, baby. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. I don't know if you saw yesterday or not, but this seems to be the new cool trend. Have you noticed the progressives? They just don't care anymore. And sometimes that's a good philosophy to have, a mentality when you're trying to change things. If you're an activist in some degree, where you just kind of let go. I mean, you ever have that to where sometimes you're trying to work on something and you're trying to be so tedious and you're trying to be so careful and meticulous, and you realize that after a while you start getting burnt out, you start getting tired or frustrated, and you just don't care anymore, and you just ram through it and just get her done. Yeah. Remember taking tests like that? I remember that. I have a short temper. Sometimes, I mean, I'm really a nice, happy-go-lucky guy. It's not like I snap a whole lot or anything, but I mean, sometimes I just get very antsy, and I get over things very, very quickly. And I remember taking tests, and I would be taking a test, and I'd be all meticulous, and I'm trying to do everything all perfect, and I'm trying to, cross all my T's and dot all my I's, and trying to make everything all perfect. And then by about halfway through, I'm like, this is taking a really long time. I'm tired of it. And then you start just like running through it and just to get it done and fill it out because you don't care anymore. Remember that? I think progressives are getting so desperate that they're starting to get to that point. They want to change things. They're becoming more and more and more on the fringe. They're trying to do more drastic measures. They're trying to do more because they're to the point to where they're tired of the long-term goal. They've had a good thing going for a while, and I will give Democrats and progressives credit. They've had a really good thing going for a really long time. Since FDR, they've learned the trick of the long-term progressivism and the long-term goals and being able to implement that in the long term. You don't always win every battle. You don't always do everything immediately. You do it to where people don't necessarily recognize the changes. You don't recognize the different... I mean, just imagine. 60, 70 years ago, we didn't have a Department of Education, which is really crazy because, how dare that we actually not have government-run education, right? Yeah. Come on. 60, 70 years ago, we didn't have a Department of Energy. We didn't have an Environmental Protection Agency. We didn't have these things. And now, all of a sudden, we're not allowed to live without them. And if we even talked about trying to downsize them, then it would be the end of the world, truly. Because they started, and it was for the quote-unquote good cause, and it was for the betterment of, and yada, 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 and it's grown to what it is now. And now we can't seem to survive without it, and it was that slow infiltration to add these things as a good cause, and now look at where we're at. They did those. They were victorious. They did that for a really long time. And now they're starting to get to the point to where they want all of it, where they've come out and they've accepted Bernie Sanders and the socialized mentality with the socialized Medicare and healthcare system, where the taxing the richer is the way to go. We need to hate on the rich people. We need to hate on corporations. We need to hate on this, hate on that. We need the government to do everything for us. And they've gotten to that point to where now they've only accepted that because they've gone to the fringe. Ted Cruz did a really good job, if you remember, during the debates on CNN with Bernie Sanders on what's the difference in policy between a socialist and a Democrat. I don't know. I don't know that one. And now it seems really cool with the trend and the fad to get arrested during a protest. If you remember, a week or two ago, there were, close to 30 or 40 individuals that got arrested at Chris Kobach's office in Topeka because they were trying to protest on him and his stance for the voter, quote-unquote, suppression, which isn't voter suppression, but that's what they call it. And they were protesting, and they were trying to fill up one of the offices, and they wouldn't leave, and they end up getting arrested and getting hauled out. And they were proud of it, and they were hooting, and they were hollering, and they were cheering, and they were happy because they accomplished something by getting arrested by a protest, by violating and trying to disrupt normal business. Well, it happened again just a couple of days ago on Monday in Topeka, where 16 protesters were arrested in Governor Jeff Collier's office, yelling shame over his opposition to Medicaid expansion. The protests were part of the nationwide Poor People's Campaign. Remember that one? The Poor People's Campaign, they were doing a week-long protest. They're so poor that they didn't go out and get a job that they have to stand there and protest about being poor because they don't like being poor because they didn't go out and get a job to not be poor anymore. It's really funny how that works. So the Poor People's Campaign was the latest of several demonstrations in Topeka over the past few weeks. A previous occupation, a part of Kansas Secretary of State's Chris Kobach's office, resulted in 18 arrests. Now they have 16 with Governor Jeff Collier because how dare that you not give us free health care and an expansion of Medicaid so we can be on the government dole and we can be on a government program. And how dare you do that because we can't afford regular insurance because we don't have jobs because we're out here protesting professionally. Does this make any sense to anybody? So it's round number 2 of the arrests, and they're not going to stop. I mean, who knows what office they're going to try to protest next. Maybe once the legislative session gets back underway, they'll try and protest some of the conservative elected officials and some of them in Congress, in our state legislature. They may try Chris Kobach's office again. They may try Jeff Collier's office again. I don't know who. Maybe Derek Schmidt's office. I don't know. They're going to continue doing this, though, because that's what they do. They've gotten to the point where they don't care anymore. And that could be worked to our benefit because they're exposing themselves, and there's a very small fringe population percentage-wise that actually believes in these things. So that could work in our favor, but it could also be very dangerous. When the animal gets backed into the corner from its predators and it has nowhere else to go, it begins to lash out. And that's the same way with the Democrats who just don't care anymore. They don't care about their self-reputation. They don't care about holding a standard. They don't care about some level of moral or ethics or some level of common sense or reason. They don't care anymore. They're desperate, and they're going to advance their agenda as hard as they possibly can. And that could potentially be dangerous in the state of Kansas when it comes to politics, because who knows what they're capable of. We need to be aware of that, but yet at the same time pat them on the head and say how cute because you just got arrested for the second time in a week. Ha! This is the Voice of Reason. Bottom of the hour news coming up. We got some calls on the line. Stay here. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. This is the Voice of Reason. Happy Wednesday morning.
Tolerate name calling.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
But if you want to try, call the show at 316-721-8255 right now. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
What's happening? Welcome into the Voice of Reason, kicking off your Wednesday morning. It's great to have you along with us today. Let's start you off the right way. The right way, I tell you. Right in many senses of the term. Right is in correct. Right as in proper, right as in conservative. Either way, 316-721-8255. It's great to have you along today on the Wednesday. 36 minutes past the hour. I want to get into the elections last night and the primaries and what they actually mean. Are we seeing the blue wave? But as I mentioned, the last one, the individuals getting arrested up in Governor Collier's office, 16 of them, 18 of them last week with Chris Kobach, the Poor People's Campaign, campaigning for poor people as they protest during the workday just because they had the sense to do so, really not caring about their status in society any longer. Really not caring. They used to at least try to hold up the same kind of standards so that way they'd be taken seriously. They don't even care anymore. And that could be a good thing, yet it could also be a bad thing when it comes to the Republican and conservative movements, both locally and nationwide. Your thoughts on all that? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Richard.
Richard, good morning, sir. How are you?
I wanted to call you back yesterday, but you got a one-call rule, so I didn't call you back. I followed the rules.
I appreciate that. That's all right. What you got for us?
Your daughter, you was wondering how she's going to do. She's going to be a smart cookie because she's got you for a dad, so you're going to teach her all the old ways and all the bad habits, and then she's going to have the new ways, too, so. She's going to be a real smart cookie.
She's going to have the best of both worlds. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Nah, I mean, come on. Before she was even born, they always say to read stories and to talk to her, when she's still in the womb, because, they can start recognizing your voice and they can start being smart. Let me tell you, when she was in the womb, I was reading a little bit of the kids' fairy tale stories and stuff, but I was actually at that time reading her Mark Levin's Liberty Amendments, and that's what I was reading to her while she was in the womb. And I tell you what, every night, usually, almost when she's home. Right now, she's out at the grandparents in Ohio, but usually when she's home, we'll read her a story every night, and I'll bounce back and forth between some kind of constitutional Republican book and some type of like fairy tale, nice little, princess and prince story, that sort of thing. So we have a happy plethora of what we like to read her at night every night.
Well, half of what school is what is at home. Mm-hmm. And if the kids come home and parents make them do their homework, I don't care if it's single parent or dual parent, mm-hmm. Make them do their homework, sit on the couch and read books. And mom or dad read books with the kids, and it pays off when they get older. And I've got 2 great kids that I'm real glad we did that. At the time, I thought, I'll let them go out and play. But we said, no, it's quiet time, and you can read books for bedtime.
I tell you what, it's really needed. Not only for the for the mind to be able to learn to read and enjoy reading and actually get accustomed to reading, but also just right before bedtime, it really helps them begin to settle down a little bit, for them to not be so tense, and they sleep better at night as well. My daughter, I mean, I don't know where she gets the energy. She is so go all the time. And it may just be the age, but I mean, she is, from the time she wakes up and her eyes pop open, she jumps out of bed and she's ready to go. She does not stop until she literally collapses. But if we read her a story for 10, 15 minutes before she goes to bed, she'll sleep a heck of a lot better too. And I think that's a benefit for both worlds.
That's a lot of that's the age, but yeah, it definitely pays off. And to the parents that's got older kids, take their cell phone from them. Take it early. Don't wait till bedtime and take it. Take it early. Make them read. Make them do this other stuff.
Well, here's a question for you. If you had kids that are that age right now and they're growing up, at what age would you give them a cell phone?
Mine got mine when she was in high school, and they had something that we wasn't picking her up or taking. My son waited till he was 18, and he bought his own because he didn't like my rule of you can have mine when you go out, but you got to give it back at night.
Exactly.
When you come home. And I tell you what, we didn't watch TV. We watched about an hour's TV a week during school. Now, when they got older, they didn't have school the next day. They could watch TV or cartoons or whatever.
Sure.
But if they had school the next day, as a rule, we did not watch TV. We read books, played outside, did whatever.
Sure.
I taught them life lessons. My son said, how come family days going out and cleaning up something, working out in the yard, doing this, doing that, and I think because it's family day.
Absolutely.
We're together.
Amen to that one. I love it.
It's paid off. So
absolutely.
Keep it up, Andy.
I love it, Richard. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate the call, and thanks for the kind words there. Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. That's the way to do it. And I mean, she has the little tiny TV in her room with the VHS player. Yes, we still have a VHS player, and we let her watch movies once in a while, only on the weekends. And that's really going to be kind of the same as if there's school the next day. She's not going to watch a movie at night to go to bed because I know sometimes it's really bad to be able to sleep that way anyways. But she likes to, she sees us. We have our TV. So on the weekends, we'll let her put in one of her VHS movies and be able to watch a movie to go to bed. Not every night, though. And it's only going to be a special occasion. The cell phone thing, not going to get one until high school. And it's going to be on my rules and on my terms on that. But we are teaching her and trying to raise her the right way. As I mentioned, we would read the political books to her. And I tell you what, you're doing good. And I think I said this story before, too. What was it? She's 4, so about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, we're trying to teach her to potty train. And we were trying to say, that she needs to go in the potty. And she was trying, and she was struggling, and she was fighting it, and she was just trying to be a little rebellious. And I told her, I said, what is it going to take for you to go potty in the potty? I mean, what do you have to do? Come on, you got to go potty in the potty. She's like, I want a high five from Donald Trump. I don't know how to fulfill that one, but she wants a high five from Donald Trump. Then, this was about 6-8 months ago, taking her home, driving her around, and she was just babbling and da-da-da-da-da-da. She always talks all the time, and I love it. It's really cute, but she's just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, and she said something where I stopped and I said, did you just say Barack Obama? Because it almost sounded like she said something like that. And I said, did you just say Barack Obama? And I looked in the back seat and she rolled her eyes and she shook her head. She goes, no, Dad, he's a bad guy. I mean, come on. My 3-year-old knows this already. She's going to be all right. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I want to get into appreciate the call there, Richard, very much. I want to get into the primary elections that happened last night, the blue wave. Are we seeing the blue wave? Is this going to change anything of what's been happening over the mentality of the progressives trying to take advantage and take control of more seats? And one of the biggest races that we saw last night was, of course, in California. The state of California, now, as you know, is predominantly blue. It's not predominantly blue when it comes to the number of counties and the vast space of the state, but when it comes to the largely populated areas that pretty much dominate the rest of the state, how that works and how that's fair, not quite sure, but, that works, I guess. So the governorship, John Cox, the Republican, endorsed by Donald Trump, ends up getting the nomination with just over 1 million votes, 1.45 million votes in that seat. But did you realize, before we even get into the actual numbers, did you realize how many candidates are actually running or were actually running in the primary for the California governorship? 27 candidates. 27 candidates ran yesterday, or have been running, to try and win the nomination in California. 12 Democrats, 5 Republicans, 5 independents, 2 libertarians, 2 Green Party members, and 1 Peace and Freedom. Not sure what that one actually is or what they stand for, but 1 Peace and Freedom along with the 2 Green and 5 independents, 2 libertarians, 12 Democrats, and 5 Republicans. Can you imagine the number of campaign ads that you would be seeing on the streets and people knocking on your door trying to talk to you? Could you imagine the craziness that would come out of that? Now, the crazy part is, shocker, right? That the Donald Trump endorsed Republican candidate ends up getting the nomination out of the 5 different Republicans. Shocker, right? The Republican that's endorsed by Donald Trump, the Donald Trump momentum that's actually showing there in California. Now, if the general election was held yesterday and all of the votes from all the candidates, that were at least Republican and Democrat, would have been consolidated into one, the Democrat would have won yesterday, but it's not a lost seat, because we don't have the Democrats, or we don't have the governorship in the first place as a Republican. Now, when it comes to the 2 libertarians, the 5 independents, the 2 Green Party, 1 Peace and Freedom, where they would actually go, I don't know, or they probably wouldn't vote for one or the other, obviously, because they're all about the weird third party thing that I just never understand and just don't get. But John Cox, that shows something, doesn't it? Come on. According to FoxNews.com, Republican John Cox has secured the spot for the ballot to face Democratic Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom in the California gubernatorial election in November, boasted by the late endorsement of President Trump and vote discontent over liberal state policies. Fox News projects that Cox will advance to the general election in the race for governor, outpacing a former Democratic mayor for the number 2 spot on the ballot. The state's jungle primary system allows the top 2 finishers to advance regardless of their party. The result is a disappointment for Democratic former L.A. mayor that was running as well, who was widely considered the most viable potential challenger, meaning that the Republican has a really good shot of winning this. As a Donald Trump Republican. Now, does that say something in the state of California? Now, Donald Trump sent out a tweet. California has a rare opportunity to turn things around to solve its high crime, high tax problems, along with so many others. On June 5th, vote for GOP gubernatorial candidate John Cox, a really good and highly competent man. He'll make California great again. And guess what? He did it. Now, how the campaigns were actually done takes in a whole nother level of this, but this shows something. This shows that still the Donald Trump Republicanism is flourishing in the nation, even in states where they despise him with a passion, where they hate him with a passion. Now, is he going to be able to win the general election? I don't know. We'll see. If the numbers looked like they did yesterday, then it's doubtful, but it's not a lost seat. It's the potential for a gained seat. Every seat that was up for a primary yesterday would have stuck with the current party that currently holds the seat. Doug LaMalfa, Republican for House District number 1 in California, won by 51% of the vote. There were 2 Democrats on the ticket. Even them combined wouldn't have been able to come up to beat him if it was a general election. House District number 2 in California, a Democrat holds it. Democrat would have maintained it. Same thing for House District number 3. House number 4, Republican had there. 2 Democrats, even combined, wouldn't have come close to the votes that they got in the primary for not even a competitor in the primary, just to be able to be on the ballot. Ended up winning that one. And it goes on and on and on down the list. No Democrat or no Republican would have swapped the seats if they were condensed and if it was a general election vote as of last night. The crazy part about this is that Nancy Pelosi in House District number 12 in California still won 68% of the vote. She did have a primary challenger that got 7% and a Republican that got 10% of the vote yesterday. Nancy, I don't understand some of those districts that just love Nancy Pelosi, that just love some of these hardcore Democrats, that just love these progressives for whatever reason. Dianne Feinstein in the U.S. Senate ended up winning her primary yesterday against another let's see how many Democrats actually ran in this one. A few, actually. There's close to 30 people on this list that actually ran for the U.S. Senate seat. Dianne Feinstein ended up winning with 43% of the vote, 1.7 million votes last night. There's close to 10, maybe, Republicans on there. Didn't even come close. Closest one got 8% of the vote. Dianne Feinstein. This is still a very blue state. This is still a very progressive state. And these Democrats that hold these seats are in solid districts. The Republicans that hold certain seats are in solid districts. The gerrymandering, the redistricting of the lines, it's pretty much locked in the majority of these seats to stay in one party or another. And I guess that's somewhat of good news-ish if we're not looking to make a whole lot of change. If we are looking to make a lot of change, then I guess it's not very good news for you if you are against the whole gerrymandering thing, which I'm not a big fan of it myself. But it really shows right now the state of politics to where we didn't change anything last night. This argument that the Democrats are going to take over the House and be able to end up impeaching President Donald Trump is a lie. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. Maybe in some seats across the nation, we might be able to see 1 or 2 changes. It's not going to be that big of a deal. New Jersey had theirs as well, and they say that Republicans end up losing that one last night. Guess what? Guess Republicans didn't do well last night. The ones that don't support Donald Trump. That's who didn't do well last night in the primary elections. The ones that support Donald Trump, they did very well. The ones that don't support Donald Trump, they didn't do very well. We have to remember what type of party the Republican Party is right now, who's in the leadership, and what we're going to advocate for when we get to the general election and what we're going to do policy-wise when we get to Washington, D.C. But no blue wave is happening. Nothing overswept many of these Republican seats if it were a general election last night. Now, we have to remember that the primary election really only has the activists come out. The non-activists usually stay home for the primaries, and they'll come out for the general election in November, which means that there may be a little give or take on some of these elections. But if the votes were held yesterday with condensed to one Republican, one Democrat, we would have seen zero changes in California. Absolutely zero. It really makes you think about that whole blue wave thing, right? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Jim, good morning, sir.
I'm doing pretty good. I listened to the news last night and today. You know, California has this free-for-all primary system.
Yes.
And they set that up, I'm sure, because they expected they had so much control of the Democratic Party.
But they just kind of let it free flow,
that they would only have Democrats running in the general election.
Sure.
That no Republican would ever get elected. So we've got some Republicans actually going to be running. So, you know, California, with a Republican governor, will be a whole lot different. And, you know, Jerry Brown has been so bad and things have been so bad. And the news about how well Donald Trump is doing as president can seek through even a very thick brain out in California. And we might just end up in November with a Republican governor in California.
You know, I hope so.
Might actually return some sanity to that state.
I hope so. Now, getting through to a California progressive is almost near impossible because, as you can see, I mean, some of them are still saying that Donald Trump is the worst person in the world and he's a terrible human being and he's a racist and whatever. So, I mean, in some of those big cities, you're not going to get that. I mean, no matter what he does, I mean, we could have zero unemployment rate and everybody making over $100,000 and they wouldn't care because they'd say that he's just a terrible, horrible human being.
Well, in California, $100,000 won't pay your local taxes.
Well, that's true, and then you have that. But, I mean, you're not going to get through some, but you're right. Hopefully it's enough for some individuals to say, you know what, yeah, look at our state right now. We have homeless populations to where we have entire cities of people just living in tents because they have nowhere else to live right now. Yeah. We have people that are actually getting fined for grilling and barbecuing in their backyard because their neighbor smelt it and reported it to the state EPA, and they came and gave them a citation. We have ridiculous laws. We have ridiculous taxes. We can't afford to live here anymore, and we're sick of it. And maybe, just maybe, there's enough individuals to say, you know what, let's try something just a little bit different. That would be really nice. Jim, I love it. Got to take a break, my friend. Appreciate the phone call very much. So I really hope that we have an opportunity. I mean, if we're going to see anything, any kind of change, I would love, as you mentioned, to have a Republican governor in California and begin to change some of that. Some ain't going to like that or allow that, but it would be really cool to watch and see how they could turn that tide. And then I wonder, with how long that actually Jerry Brown's actually been governor in the state of California, I wonder if they would try and give the former Democrat credit for whatever good things happen under the Republican governor in the state of California. It'd be really wild to try and see how they try and spin that one. 7 minutes to the top of the hour. Got to take a break. Wrapping up hour number 1. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Lots more to get to talking about these primaries. When we come back in hour number 2, we are going to talk about this Ron Estes versus Ron Estes. I've been doing a little digging myself to find out who this guy is, what's going on. We'll invite him onto the show, see if we can't get any info there. But did find out some information on Ron M Estes competing against Congressman Ron Estes, along with the Democrats all up in arms about the titling of how they're going to be labeled when it comes to the ballot, and thinking that having the rep on there, the REP for Representative Ron Estes on the ballot, is a violation of law in the state. We'll talk about all that and more. Lots to get to today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got some calls online as well. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We'll start off with you in hour number 2 as we kick off a Wednesday, starting off your day the right way, the conservative way, the traditional way, the fun way, the entertaining way, the whatever way. This is The Voice of Reason, hour number 2 coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
When they do it, they have a justification. When we do it, then it's a terrible, horrible thing because we have to have different standards for different people based on their ideology, because we have to have that grace built into the progressive mindset as opposed to a conservative where you're already terrible. So if you just do that, then you're just exposing who you really are. It doesn't matter that a progressive is actually a very hateful, bitter individual. When they lash out, then it's justified and it's actually okay.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Great to have you along. Great to be with you. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. What's happening? 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, the Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. And we'd love to hear from you. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner. He'll be joining us as he does every single Wednesday. Looking forward to chatting with him. And there's a lot to get to when it comes to some of the local campaigns, local elections, local goodies that we get to have fun with. But let's kick off hour number 2 with a phone call. What do you say? I like doing that. 316-721-8255, line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning. It's Deacon.
Deacon, what's going on, sir?
Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful day.
That's the way we roll. I love it.
Hey, I was calling about the exodus away from the deep blue states, you know, California and the rest of them.
Sure.
It's great. They figured out that it's not working. Here's the problem. They're bringing their liberal politics with them. And they're going to trash the good red states where, hey, we know how to live. We know how to take care of stuff. We know that if you charge everybody a buttload of taxes, then people are going to get out of there. They're going to go someplace where they keep the money that they earned.
You know, it's almost like an infestation, isn't it? I mean, you got liberal progressives that come out of California that have destroyed their state. It's almost like a bacteria, and it grows and it grows. It's like a virus, and as they run out of their resources, they have the crazy high taxes, ridiculous regulations. They have terrible policy making in the state. They can't deal with it any longer, or maybe they do, and they just want to try and change others because they can't stand to actually know that people actually live a different lifestyle than they do. They move to other places, and then they end up changing the policies there instead of saying, you know what, it didn't work there, or I like it, so I'm going to go back to it. No, I'm going to change it where I'm at. Colorado is the perfect example of that because they left California to come to Colorado. Colorado used to be a very deep red state. Now it's a very purple state leaning on predominantly blue.
And I'll go another step further. The massive illegal immigrant problem that we have in this country are people who are running away from a country that's awful, just like California, but they want to make it the place that they ran away from when they get here. What kind of sense does that make? If it sucks so bad that you move your entire family away from there, why would you want to destroy the place you're going to? Because
that's the only type of lifestyle that they know, unfortunately. They're so open-minded and tolerant and lovey-dovey about everyone else's views and everyone else's lifestyles is that they don't know how to live under those other ones, so they have to force everyone else to abide by the way that they want to live. And that's just the way they operate. That's the way their brain is wired for whatever reason. I don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense to me. If you see a place that's great, like, if you lived in communist Russia back in the day and you were able to get away from there and get to the United States, you wouldn't want to make this communist Russia.
How many people have you heard of that are here in the United States that have come from other nations like that, whether it's from Russia and the Soviet Union, my friend, or whether it's from Cubans in Cuban America, and they can't deal with Fidel Castro or with the Castros any longer, and they've come here and they came to the nation, and then they said, you know what? I left there because it was so terrible. I want my community to live the same way that we did back there. How many people have you heard actually say that when they've moved here?
Nobody I know, and I know a lot of people that have come here the right way. They got away from a terrible system, and they got here, and they loved America so much that they wanted to be, they wanted to be Americans. They wanted to immerse themselves in the culture and in the experience of being an American, of being able to say what you want to say. Go where you want to go without somebody coming up on you going, papers, please. To be able to own a firearm, this is the greatest country in the world, and it's being destroyed.
It really is. It really is. And I'm glad you mentioned the Second Amendment, because you're right. The right to carry that firearm, protect yourself. I think the number one purpose, the founding fathers said, we need to carry a firearm to protect ourselves from the government and any type of snake that may be in the area.
Well, you need a snake slayer. But my last point is it's got 100% to do with the Second Amendment. And I don't know if you've ever heard this, but the Second Amendment is the one that gives the rest of them teeth.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't have the rest of them unless you have the Second Amendment. The government can, just like that, be able to take away your right to religion. They can, just like that, be able to take your right away to freedom of speech or freedom of expression. They can take your right to all the other rights that you have guaranteed by the Constitution. They can take away unless we have that Second Amendment that says, yeah, you know what, if you try that, then this is what's going to happen.
An unarmed man is a servant. An
Absolutely.
armed man is a citizen.
That's what it's about, my friend. I love it. Deacon, I appreciate the phone call, and you're right. I truly, honestly think after hearing that story about the snake bite that happened at Cheney Lake, that's the purpose of the Second Amendment, is to keep the government away and to destroy snakes that may be in your vicinity. I'm telling you. I joked about that in the first hour. Look, I went to Sri Lanka. If you remember, I've been told the story numerous times. 2005, I went, and right after the tsunami that happened, the 2004 Christmas time when that big tsunami hit that whole area, and I went in July of 2005 to do some tsunami relief to try and help out, and our goal was to go and tear down and clean up, and then there was going to be a group coming in after us to rebuild. And I went there, and I tell you what, now I don't know what it was. It wasn't a Komodo dragon, because there weren't apparently any Komodo dragons in that area, but it was a very large lizard. It was literally, I don't know, it was maybe a foot off the ground and close to 5 or 6 feet long. It was ridiculous. And it jumped out of the bushes as we were cleaning up one yard, I think like a Buddhist monastery or something. And it jumped out of the bushes and ran off, and it freaked a lot of people out. I would take that over a little bitty snake. And I don't care if it's a little tiny 6-inch garter snake out in your garden. I don't care. I will take the giant 6-foot lizard coming at me rather than a snake. I will take my chances over that. I'm just saying. I don't know what it is. And that's the purpose right now of the Second Amendment, is to destroy the snakes. 316-721-8255. Speaking of, by the way, the progressives leaving the state, trying to manipulate, trying to force everybody to live their lifestyle, trying to live the way they want to. They're not the very tolerant ones that they say that they are, right? The open-minded, tolerant, accepting, lovey-dovey progressives. Again, we're not talking parties here. I don't care, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter here. The parties are irrelevant. It's the ideology. It's the mental state that people live in. The mental state that says, I am so angry that someone lives a different way than I do. And if they do live a different way, then they're probably a racist. They're probably a bigot. They're probably X, Y, and Z, because I focus my entire life on looking at people based on their skin color and judging them appropriately as a progressive. And if anybody else tries to say otherwise, then they're a terrible human being who's probably a xenophobe, who's probably a homophobe, who's probably a racist or a bigot or whatever. And that's I don't know how people live under that way, because that's a very terrible way to live your life, but they do. And I don't know if you saw the news or not. This happened last week. It's a story that I've been kind of sitting on. Haven't had a chance to talk about a whole lot. But in California, if you searched either Nazism or you searched the California Republican Party, they were on Google tied to one another. You search Nazism, and it would come up with political parties with this ideology, and it ran through the list there on the little blurb, and it would have the California Republican Party. You search the California Republican Party, and it says ideologies associated with this, Nazism. And it was on there for a day or two, and then they ended up removing it. Now, whether it was a hiccup on Google, whether it was an intentional attack a week before the primaries, by the way, just to remind you on that one, we just had the primaries in California yesterday, and a week ago was when this happened. They're not trying to manipulate the elections at all, right? Because they are so adamant that Republicans are terrible human beings that they will stop at nothing. Dirty politics, dirty shenanigans, trying to manipulate the voters, trying to push them and enforce them and trying to encourage them to vote Democrat, or trying to scare them. I mean, isn't that the definition of terrorism, by the way? Is trying to threaten or intimidate or force someone to do something that you want them to do. Isn't that called terrorism? And yet we see it in our campaigns. We see it in the elections. We see it when it comes to political ideologies, especially in California, to where if you're part of the Republican Party, then you are probably part of that Nazism group, which doesn't make any sense because, as you know, Nazi socialism is socialism from the left end of the aisle, but it makes perfect sense from the socialists that are Nazis that want to try and pawn off their ideology to somebody else because they don't want to be associated with that because they don't think it really it really correlates with them. This is what we're up against. We read the story last hour of Governor Jeff Collier with the 16 members of the Poor People's Campaign that were protesting ended up getting arrested in his office on Monday. Why did they get arrested there? Because they were causing havoc, because they're to the point, the ideological left is so far to the fringe now to where they don't care. They do not care. They are to the point to where they will push their agenda to the extreme. They are pushing themselves to the fringe to where it's a very small population that's actually saying, yeah, this is actually a good idea, and they don't care about their status in society. They don't care about what kind of reprimations they end up getting because of this. They don't care, which we can pat on the head and say, yeah, look at this, and we can expose them for that, but the majority of their own party doesn't care either. The Democrats and the progressives have really taken it to a whole new level. They really have. Their entire, what's the campaign that you've heard at the national level for this blue wave that's supposedly going to happen? It's not happening, but supposedly it's going to happen. What have you been hearing? What's their campaign talking point? There's only one, or I guess two. We're going to redo everything that Donald Trump's done, and we're going to impeach him. That's what you've heard. We're going to impeach Donald Trump and reverse every policy that he's done. We're going to increase spending again at the big government level. We're going to get new people into the different positions at the cabinet levels when it comes to the administrations because they're doing a terrible job since they're trying to downsize some of these. We're going to repeal the tax cuts that everybody's enjoying right now that's led to an 18-year low for a national unemployment rate and for the largest GDP growth that we've seen in 10 years. We're going to repeal the individual mandate repealing that he did, and we're going to put that back in place so that way we can have bigger government when it comes to more health care. We're going to socialize the healthcare industry, and we're just going to go back to the same old that we've seen the last 8 years with Barack Obama and then take it to an entirely new level. That's what you've heard. Now, who would actually be up for that? I just don't get it. I don't understand it, but that's the reality of it. And then when you disagree with them, then this is what you see. Google lists Nazism as the ideology of the California Republican Party. The dirty politics being played, which, by the way, dirty politics being played here in the 4th congressional seat as well when it comes to that primary. I do want to talk about that today. I haven't really said a whole lot when it comes to the Ron Estes v. Ron Estes run for the primary, strictly because I didn't have any information. We don't know anything about this guy. I've been trying to do a little personal digging, and I found some. We'll talk about that in the show today, probably in the kickoff at the 8 o'clock hour. Because there's a lot to get to with it. And the Democrats now are up in arms about how the election is going to be done for this seat when it really seems like, and I'm not pointing fingers, I don't know, it's still just all up in the air and speculation, but it almost seems like the Democrats have their hands in the sabotaging of this election just to try and do something. Because, again, if you don't agree with them, then they're going to do whatever it takes. The dirty politicking, the fair gaming is out the window. The level-headedness is out the window because it doesn't matter. They are so desperate that their justification meets the ends. And they see it. As long as they get their end goal, they don't care what it takes. Which really reminds you about some, like mafia types back in the day, right? That, the ends justify the means and that's about it. Whatever it takes to get the end goal, that's what they do, and who cares who gets in the way with that and what type of collateral damage they have along the way. They just don't care, and the progressives are starting to act that way even here on the local front. Got to take a break, 21 minutes past the hour. Your thoughts and calls. We got a lot to talk about today. It is a Wednesday, a freedom-loving Wednesday, baby. You see the light at the end of the tunnel halfway through the week. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
6 minutes past the hour. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, fighting for what's right, reasonable, and sensible. common sensible, in some degree at least, on a daily basis. Welcome in 316-721-8255. Great to have you along on a Wednesday. By the way, KQAM, we have our ultimate Father's Day giveaway coming up here very soon. We love Father's Day. We love Mother's Day. We love all the fun opportunities to give you something really, really cool. And I want to start warning you about it. Starting off next week, we're going to be registering somebody each day next week, Monday through Friday, for the ultimate Father's Day on KQAM. All you got to do is tune into the Voice of Reason here. You'll hear the sounder, and you'll get registered. The following week, leading up to Father's Day, we will get you your Father's Day goodie, and it's maybe on Friday, because I think next week, what is it, the 17th, I think, is Father's Day, so next Friday maybe we'll give it away, or the following Monday right afterwards. However we end up working it, but we'll get you registered for it. We'll give away the ultimate Father's Day. Here's what you're going to get this year, and it's a pretty cool little package. 4 ticket vouchers to Kansas City Royals for the game of your choice. The voucher so you can choose what game you actually want to go to. 4 tickets to that. 4 tickets to the Wichita Open Golf Tournament. 2 tickets to 81 Speedway for the race of your choice if you want to go see a race. And 2 tickets to the Wichita Wingnuts game on July 4th with the fireworks are going to happen directly after the 4th of July game. It's going to be a huge project. It's going to be a huge package. It's going to be something that you are going to want to get. So stay tuned in. Starting Monday next week, we'll give away and start registering you for the ultimate Father's Day on KQAM. Brought to you by the way, Roden Roofing, 358 South at Laura Street. You can visit them at rodenroofing.com. That's RHODEN roofing.com. Also, Auburn Hills Wine and Spirits, 19940 West Kellogg Drive in Goddard. You can visit them on Facebook at Auburn Hills Wine and Spirits. We appreciate those guys partnering up with us. And make sure you, next week, get registered for the ultimate Father's Day package here on KQAM. Plus, as you know, we are involved in Riverfest. Rick Everett going to be broadcasting live out there from noon to 1 today at Riverfest. This week is the last week of it. It's coming up for the last few. Can you believe it? It's almost done already. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it's done and over. If you haven't gotten a chance to go out there, get out to Riverfest. It's going to be really cool. Saturday at 3 p.m. is the day that you all look forward to every single year. It is the 9th annual KQAM KGSO funnel cake eating contest, and it's time for you, my friends, to test your tummy when it comes to the ultimate funnel cake eating contest. All you got to do is get registered. We can get you registered right now if you want to call 316-721-8255. I'll get you registered. It's Saturday, June 9th at 3 p.m. right at the food court. You get registered, and here's how it works. You have 10 minutes. 10 minutes to eat as many funnel cakes as you can. And if you know, those funnel cakes that they have there at Riverfest are very hearty and very delicious, and it's got the powdered sugar and it's got the deliciousness on there. They have different flavored ones. I believe for the competition it's just the generic powdered sugar one, but the funnel cake is there. We will see how many that you can eat. I don't know what the record is. I'd like to see what that record is. You do have the bucket next to you in case things end up happening, but it is time for the 9th annual KQAM KGSO funnel cake eating contest. Test your tummy, my friends. Are you strong enough? Are you tough enough to make it happen? We'll get you registered right now. Get registered. Have a little fun with it. It's Saturday at 3 p.m. What else are you doing on the weekend other than going out and enjoying Riverfest 2018? Give me a call, 316-721-8255. We'll get you registered for that funnel cake eating contest, and then stay tuned in next week for the ultimate Father's Day giveaway. Let's take a break. Bottom of the hour news when we come back. Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, will be joining us talking about some of the county issues. Also, we will get into this Ron Estes v. Ron Estes race for the primary in the 4th Congressional District. Stay here. This is The Voice of Reason.
I know I've been so hard on you. I know I've told you
Taking talk radio to the next level. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. I just ate the mushroom. Oh, buddy. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, we'd love to hear from you today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. It's time for our county update. We do it every single week, and we love having him on the show as he is a great friend, great individual here for the county, rocking and rolling, advancing that conservatism, Mr. Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner. Jim, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, and I love being on your show, and I sure do appreciate your service to this Wichita community. I think you are you bring things you help us think about it in a better way. So I just appreciate all you do for us.
Well, I appreciate that. We do what we can and trying to get that information out. It's tricky sometimes because there's a lot of stuff that happens, and sometimes the media doesn't report it the proper way, or it's really not even notified or let you know what's actually going on, or just the way that it's done sometimes, just as the general norm. Sometimes we just have to question that, and that's what we try and do. So hopefully it's actually for the benefits. You guys did not have a county meeting as of last week because that was the fourth Wednesday or whatever it was of the month. So there was no county meeting as of last week. So you guys are back at it this week, correct?
We are going to have a very interesting meeting this morning at 9 o'clock. And we have a meeting, of course, next week. And but I'll tell you what, today's going to be the one to watch. I think today's going to be very interesting. If someone wants to kind of get an experience about what BOCC meetings are like, this is the one to pay attention to. So it'll be a fun discussion today. Expect a lot of interesting discussion about maybe a couple of contentious issues, and so we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to the meeting, but I'm also a little bit concerned and a little bit nervous about what's how this might lay out. So we'll see.
Sure. We'll talk about some of the details, what might be discussed in this one, and what some of the debates that's happening right now. I know that you mentioned last week, you mentioned some of the details about the upcoming vaping rules. That one not going to be on the agenda today, but that is going to be coming up soon as well, though.
Right. They got pushed back to next week because we have a couple of other items on today's agenda that they decided to push that one back just because we don't need more stuff to talk about today. So
sure.
So today, really, let me get down to the issues here. So, by the way, we do start our meetings with invocation. Help people understand that's a good thing. Looking forward to our invocation, and then we've got a couple of appointments. That's pretty mundane. That happens pretty much almost every meeting. We have a couple other little things we have to get to, but then we get to this interesting thing called the administration building. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that. This would be our probably, in terms of BOCC meetings, this is probably our third or fourth meeting we've had on this issue. And then after that, we have our consent agenda. And consent agendas typically are things that are non-controversial, just kind of routine type little things like paying the bills type of thing. But this week we've got an item on there for one commissioner that wants to pave 2 miles of road, and he has a couple of interesting arguments I might share that with you as well. But starting back with the admin building, I don't know if you have any questions for me, but I've talked about this before on the air, but I guess I have a lot of problems with some of the proposals that are being brought to us, and I think that from my perspective, we want to have good buildings, we want to have adequate buildings, we want to have buildings that help us do our job and so we can be efficient and effective. I don't want to spend a lot of money on them. And so, we have competing principles and goals here. I do think there's one option that kind of provides the best balance. But there are some other options for us, and we could spend some more money and have a different kind of building. So that's going to be a pretty big debate. And trying to get 5 people, I would say a majority of them, 3 people to agree on a direction on this thing is kind of like trying to herd goldfish.
Sure. Well, that's true. And I know that last time we talked about some of the pros and cons of each one of the different options that you guys have. I know we're getting down to the nitty gritty. So will you guys have a final decision on that today, or will it be drawn out for another couple of weeks to make that decision?
Well, we have one deadline we have to deal with, and this one of our options has a June 9th deadline. If we don't make a decision to go in that direction, then we do have some more time, although I do think that some of my colleagues, if we choose to take that option off the table, I think some of my colleagues just want to move forward in another direction. So we don't have to make a decision today, but I expect we probably will. And I think there's probably 2 options that are bubbling up as being the 2 that seem to have the most interesting package deal. One of them, for surface value is about $21 million. The other one's around $11 or $12 million. Depends on how you want to look at it. There's a lot of ways to look at this to kind of spin it one way or the other. I'm trying to be really fair about that. I could spin it and say, well, the purchase price of one building is down around $7 million. The purchase price of the other one is $19 million easily. But you add in bond and interest, and you talk about lost tax value, taking a commercial building off the tax rolls. There's that impact, not just to us, but also to the city of Wichita as well as the school district. There's that impact. There's schedule and how quickly we can get into the building or how long it takes to build the building. Those are all issues. And so, I have to say this is one of the more complex decisions we've had to make since I've been a commissioner. And I guess my opinion, and I know I'm probably spinning this in a direction that some of my colleagues would not appreciate me saying this, but I'm looking at this as like a potentially a $30 million decision when you add in the commodities, and the utility costs, and the interest on the bonds. And in my opinion, the one that's going to cost, close to $30 million, maybe it's $28 million. But one that's going to cost around that figure, in my opinion, is an inadequately sized building. It doesn't really even meet the needs over time. So I'm having a real problem with that. And I'm not sure if I'm really open-minded enough to hear the arguments to move myself in their direction. I'll do my best to hear those arguments. I hope they do the same for me, allow me to say the things I think are important, and I hope that they're open-minded enough to seriously consider, the arguments I would like to make towards maybe a less expensive option. So these are, one thing about the County Commission, we are pretty good about deliberating things in the open. Sometimes you look at governing bodies and they kind of come out and it's almost like they don't really talk about stuff much in public. And so
sure,
it's almost like the decisions have kind of been made maybe in their office type of thing. I hate to say it, but behind the scenes type of things where decisions might be formulated. I don't think that happens here, and I don't think you'll see that today. We're going to come out, and it's going to be a very interesting debate. We're going to have people from the public. We're going to have staff. We're going to have probably people who represent the buildings that want to weigh in and try to encourage us to see their side of this issue. I think you're going to see a vast spectrum of ideas from the commissioners themselves. And so one thing I'd like to say about County Commission, and that is we do this in an open meeting, and sometimes it gets a little bit like making sausage or a little bit ugly. And but I do appreciate that. I think that's the better way for us to govern.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in prime example of this, and I brought it up last time when we discussed it as well, but the DMV building, when you guys ended up doing that, how much did that end up costing to, because I believe that building was already there, you purchased it, kind of remodeled it a bit, and now it works very efficiently for what you guys had in store. So how much was that one when you guys ended up doing that project?
Well, we ended up spending about 1.6, around about 1.6 total. That was for the purchase and the renovation.
Okay.
And the commodities, and you add it all together, it's about 1.6. We paid cash. That is a fee-funded purchase. Take that back. We put the money out, I guess, on the front end. I'm not exactly sure how the dollars works on that one. It's been a long time since we dealt with it.
Sure.
But the bottom line is about 1.6 million. It was in a blighted neighborhood. It was the old Dillon's building at Meridian and Douglas, and there was weeds in the parking lot. As tall as me. It looked horrible. Been vacant for a decade, and nobody wanted to deal with that building. We purchased it, and it looks fantastic. It's a great location. We have ample parking, and I think we really hit a home run on that one. That was a fantastic conclusion to a need for Sedgwick County. Moving from the Murdoch office, a very horrible office in a horrible location, to that building was a tremendously good government decision.
Sure.
But we had an opportunity in the middle of that to go towards the Reagan building. And that would have been about $6 million, and you add in the cost of 2 floors plus the remodeling of those 2 floors, bond and interest. It was about a $6 million decision just for the tag office. So we saved about $4 million.
Well, and that's what we need. I mean, that's the kind of mentality that we need for this project, whether it is building a new building or renovating something that's already existing. As you mentioned, I mean, you threw out the number of $30 million, so that's substantially higher than the project with the DMV. But if we're able to do it cost effective compared to something that's, $40, $50, $60 million, or even able to get it down to 20, something like that. I mean, if we're able to do this in a cost-effective way, pay for the majority of it out of cash, I don't know if that's possible or not, then, I mean, I think the taxpayers that are in the county are going to be more apt to something like that, more considering than saying, oh, you know what, we're going to take out a whole bunch of loans on this, and it's going to be a 10-year project with $100 million, and, oh, yeah, our county taxes are going to go up some.
That's a good point. And I'll tell you, some of the costs that are being looked at right now are not bond type costs. There's costs like utility costs and maybe some repair costs that we could pay cash for. So, but the total price when you consider it over time is somewhere between, and again, it depends on how you want to look at it, but it's somewhere north of $21 million for one building, and probably, at worst case is probably around $16 million for the other building. Is still a $5 million difference.
Sure. And
I think it's worthy. By the way, I would like to remind the listeners, the reason this has come up is because we have to clear out some space for it's always been the plan. The courthouse was never meant to be an administration building for the county. When the courts needed the space, we would have to move. That time has come. The district attorney is overwhelmed with his lack of space. The sheriff's having trouble operating properly, and the courts need more courtroom space. And so we've even actually been, encouraged to provide that courtroom space by the Kansas Supreme Court has weighed in on this issue.
Sure.
So we've got to clear the admin part of this building out of this building and give this back to the court-related functions. That's the DA, sheriff, and the court system itself. And so we have to find, in my opinion, a modest, adequate space nearby that provides the function that we need for our staff to do their jobs and for the public to do their business. And so my opinion is, I've used this on my Facebook last week, but I don't think the taxpayers are impressed with the grandeur of government. We need to be, I think the word I would like to use is modest. That means that we have a building that's not flashy. We have a building that has 8-foot ceilings if need be, or we have a building that has the right number of cubicles inside for our staff to do their job. And we don't have, in other words, make it nice, but make it adequate, but make it efficient and effective.
Sure.
And to me, that's kind of my goal. Now, we don't have that choice. That choice doesn't exist in the core. But we have other options. We have buildings that are sized appropriately. We have buildings that are less expensive to purchase. Maybe still a very good-looking building.
Sure.
Or we can build a building that, we can build a building from scratch, which is the more expensive option. My problem with that is it's just not quite enough space, and it kind of limits our options down the road. And anytime you build brand new space, it's going to cost more. You got to think about it. You're going to go out and buy a 2,500 square foot home. More than likely, if you build it brand new and you do the landscaping and you put the all the finishes in that are considered 21st century normal finishes, it's going to cost more to build a brand new home than it would be to purchase an older home and maybe remodel it.
Sure.
It's the same thing. And so I just think that we have options of buying used buildings. In fact, I would tell you, someone told me last week there's 1 million square feet of office space that's unused in downtown Wichita right now. And so for us to build more office space, in my opinion, it's going to cost taxpayers more. It is a nicer building, in my opinion, a little too small. And I think it limits our options down the road. And the price per square foot is higher. Those are my concerns. And so that's just me. I can't speak for the majority. I think I'm going to lose on this issue, probably. But unless I can be convinced, in the next hour and a half or so, a couple of hours, more than likely, I feel like I'm having a hard time supporting the build version of this. But we'll see. I mean, I'm open. I'm trying to do my best to keep my mind open, and I hope my colleagues are doing the same.
Sure.
We have a number. Again, we have these two options are actually are other options. We eliminated a couple of options last time we had a meeting on this. Although I still think at least one of those options ought to be a viable option for us to reconsider. But that's just me. And anyway, one of the most complex things we've had come across my agenda in the last 3.5 years I've been here. But this is an enormous decision. It's going to impact Sedgwick County government for the next 50 to 100 years. And I'm not going to take this lightly or rush this decision because we have to feel like we're making a decision today. That's my opinion.
Well, exactly. And that's what it's all about, being able to shop around and find the best deal to make sure that it's going to be beneficial to you guys in the commission, that's actually going to let you do your job the way you need to, and also friendly to the taxpayers of the county. So I love it. Sedgwick County Commission happening today, the meeting. Again, remind people where and when it is, where they can go, so that way if they want to chime in, they can.
Yeah, thank you. It's if you want to do it easy, it's on Channel 8, KPTS PBS Channel 8 is broadcast nearly statewide. We also put it on YouTube after the fact. We also broadcast it live on our website. So if you have a computer, you want to do it that way, you can do it by looking at the website. But if you want to come to the meeting actually happens at 9 o'clock, starts at 9 o'clock. We'll get into the admin building pretty quickly. My guess is by about 9:15 or 9:20, we'll be into the discussion of the admin building. But we are going to be meeting in our chambers. It's at the corner of Central and Main. We're on the northwest corner, third floor of the Blue Courthouse. And we do have security measures in place. Please leave your guns and knives at home. Come on up and visit with us. We'd love to have you. We would love to have you speak at our meeting. We would encourage the public to engage with this discussion by emailing commissioners with their opinions, as well as attend our meeting and give us your opinion. We want to hear from people. And that we just think it's a great opportunity. And if you haven't seen our meetings, please do so. Even if you have to do it after the fact, I hope that they would take a few minutes to see what happens today.
Sure. I love it. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell rocking and rolling when it comes to the meeting today. And then the next couple of weeks, I think, should be pretty entertaining and fun. I don't think we're going to want to miss those. So we'll have another fun discussion with that next week. Jim, we always appreciate it, my friend. We'll chat with you again next Wednesday.
Thank you, Andy. You have a great week.
Hey, always a good time. Appreciate it very much. Let's take a break. 9 minutes at the top of the hour. We got lots more to get to today, along with your phone calls. It's open lines to you for the rest of the show right here on The Voice of Reason on a Wednesday. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Wrapping up hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason. Welcome into it here on a Wednesday. Thanks again to Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, joining the program. We always love chatting with him. Look, if you want to get involved in local politics, if you want to get involved in something locally to where you can really see the effects of it dramatically, almost immediately sort of thing, this is how you do it. City Council, County Commission, these are the ways you get involved. Even the state legislature. I would say that our state legislature, we can even see the drastic effects of what they do on a semi-immediate basis. When they, I mean, come on. If they're doing retroactive tax increases, you know what they're doing pretty dramatically and pretty immediate, right? You can see it when you go and file your taxes, and you're like, oh, look, I owe $2,000. Hooray! Because I know you're all giddy and excited. I see you jumping up and down. I see you excited. You ever get the excitement of when you're like dancing in your vehicle and you think nobody's looking? That's how excited Democrats are and progressives are when the government says, we're going to do a retroactive tax on you in order to take more of your money because we need to spend more of it at the state level. That's how excited they are. They're just cruising along. They're singing. They're headbanging in their car. They're dancing along and singing to whatever they sing to these days. I don't know. John Denver? Is that still cool and hip? I don't listen to John Denver. I don't care for John Denver. But to each their own. And I can see it right now. They're excited. Oh, please raise taxes on me again. I can't wait to have less money in my paycheck. I can't wait to have less money in my business because I get to pay it to the government so they can properly take care of me. I am so giddy about that. Let's make that happen. That's how excited they get. When we come back after the top of the hour, we'll shift gears a little bit. The 4th Congressional District having some interesting news as of lately when it comes to who's running in the primary for the Republicans, and the news and the information I've been able to find out. So maybe you found out some more as well. Kind of an interesting conversation. Plus the Democrats that are up in arms about how this is all going to play out, which I find extremely ironic. This is your show, as always. Time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason here on KQAM. Hour number 3 coming up.
Speak. It's time for Reason.
When they do it, they have a justification. When we do it, then it's a terrible, horrible thing because we have to have different standards for different people based on their ideology, because we have to have that grace built into the progressive mindset as opposed to a conservative where you're already terrible. So if you just do that, then you're just exposing who you really are. It doesn't matter that a progressive is actually a very hateful, bitter individual. When they lash out, then it's justified and it's actually okay.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. What's happening? Great to have you along today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's the way we roll, baby. And we love having you hang out with us. 8 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. No guest this hour, just you and I chitting the chat, advancing conservatism, waking up the best way that we know how to do so as we wake up the right way. Take the word right however you deem it necessary. Waking up the right way right here on the show. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. Facebook.com/1480 KQAM. I want to jump right into this as it's been a very interesting week in politics. As you know, we've had the Vermin Supreme run for the Attorney General, and now he's switched from the Democrat to the Republican on Friday, right before the end to the deadline at noon to be able to file to run for a political office, switched to a Republican side to compete against Derek Schmidt in the primaries. The Republicans now trying to get him off of the ballot because, well, I mean, he doesn't have residency here. And they did that to one of the governor's candidates, an independent gubernatorial candidate from New York that was trying to run here, ended up removing them from the ballot, trying to remove Vermin Supreme. I don't know how much focus or attention that we should really have on that, nor do I necessarily care, although it is entertaining. And as a Republican candidate, I will reach out and see if we can't get him on the show because that would be entertaining as well. But beyond that, I don't know how much we should actually pay attention to that. But the other big one that really dropped last week was the Ron Estes v. Ron Estes race right here for the 4th congressional seat. And other than the announcement of, if you've noticed, I haven't really talked about it a whole lot the last few days. I haven't really said anything about it at all. And there's a reason for that. Is I've been trying to do a little digging, trying to do a little internal investigation, doing my journalistic duties. Oh, come on, that's supposed to be funny. That's supposed to be funny, right? Because I'm not a journalist. I'm a commentator, but I do want to do a little investigative research to be able to see who this individual is and what's actually going on with it. So I haven't talked about it the last few days, but I've found some information that I think that we need to know about. Because if it's true, as the let's for a second, everybody stop, put your tinfoil hats on for a second. Let's talk about the conspiratorial theories that we have going on here and the progressives that are potentially trying to sabotage elections because they don't like the way some of these are going. Now, I went to the website. It took me a while to find it, but I found the website for this other Ron Estes challenging Congressman Ron Estes in this primary. And the website is the real Ron Estes. It's, I believe, realronestes.com is his website. And there's one page to it. There's no biography of the candidate. There's no platform of it. There's no paid for by. There's no information other than a picture with the logo of the real Ron Estes that looks actually quite similar to the Congressman Ron Estes' campaign logo. Looks very similar to that. Shocker. And then the real is underlined. The real Ron Estes. And it's one page, just the home page with a little donate button at the top. And it says, Wichita, Ron Estes announces primary campaign for U.S. Congress. And here's what the press release had to say. Today, Ron Estes announces his intention to seek the Republican nomination for the Kansas's 4th Congressional District seat. Estes, a father of 2 who lives in Wichita with his wife Ellen, is a first-time candidate. He is running because our status quo elected leaders refuse to represent the people of Kansas's 4th District, ignoring town halls, avoiding constituents, running huge deficits, and more. The incumbent is a perfect representative of, quote-unquote, the swamp in Washington, D.C. Quote, I love the people of Kansas, and our current representative is an embarrassment, Estes says. The incumbent has become the epitome of the D.C. swamp. I believe Kansas Republicans deserve a representative Ron Estes who will show up and represent the 4th District, Kansas. I feel compelled to run and win in this primary and defend our Kansas values. Estes said his priorities will be representing the interests of 4th District voters instead of the interests of campaign donors. Quote, focusing on the people is the only way to end gridlock in Washington, D.C. Our leaders have let us down, and it's time for change from the status quo. Get updates for the Republican Ron Estes at realronestes.com. All right, so that's the website, the entire website. There's no other pages. There's no other information. That's as much information as we get for this candidate. Who is he? What does he stand on? What is he going to believe in? He says that Congressman Ron Estes is not representing us the proper way, that he's representing the D.C. swamp, that he's voted for budget deficits, and that he's a terrible candidate and doesn't talk to the constituents, which I would have to challenge that, but that's what this page says. All right, so he's running the campaign. He's going after his opponent. That's what you're supposed to do. Who is he? Aren't we supposed to know? I mean, if you're going to be the representative of the people, of your constituents, shouldn't we know who you are? I have biography about you, your name, like other than just Ron M Estes, a little bit about you. Maybe you're going to go to some meetings and actually get out into the public so we can talk to you and ask you questions. Are you going to do something? What's the scoop here? So that's all we have public. And there's a few media outlets that have actually been able to try to dig a little bit deeper and find out a little bit more about this individual, on who he is and what's going on. Now, here's what I've been able to find out. And this is confirmed by the public records on campaign donations, on voter registration. Now, you can't see, obviously, who they voted for, but you can see who they've been registered as. And Ron M Estes and Ellen have both been registered Republicans, at least for the last 7 years in Sedgwick County. That's what I've been able to find out. However, as being a registered Republican, we have been able to find some of their political contributions over the last few years. And I think what you'll find is actually kind of interesting. Over the past few years, as a registered Republican, mind you, that Ron M Estes and Ellen Estes, his wife, had made many political contributions, all of them towards Democrats. All of them towards Democrats. Paul Davis, Democratic gubernatorial candidate and House candidate a couple of times, gave $759 to Paul Davis. James Thompson, the challenger, the Democratic liberal Bernie Sanders-ite progressive challenger to Congressman Ron Estes in the special election last year, they donated a total of $1,155 in 4 different contributions to James Thompson. Contributions to Gene Shadorf, Democratic candidate for Secretary of State back in 2014, a Democrat, formerly Republican state senator, and then a Democratic candidate for Secretary of State, contributed $2,500. Here's the kicker as well. Let's see here. Back in 2012, $400 contribution to the Obama for America Super PAC in the Barack Obama campaign. Total contributions to multiple different Democrats, including a few others, thousands of dollars. Democratic as a registered Republican. Now, they did vote. They've been very active in the sense of voting and political activism. In that sense, they show up for the primaries and for the general elections. Obviously, don't know who they're voting for. But every political contribution that has been made by Ron M. Estes and Helen Estes have been towards Democrats, including the left-wing progressive socialist James Thompson that ran against Ron Estes last election. Now, tell me that that's not suspicious in some way, shape, or form. First off, I mean, I guess it falls in line with some of the Republicans that are in the state of Kansas, to where they openly register as a Republican to be able to promote progressive liberal policies, because that they know that they can do it. And if they're a Democrat, they're not going to go very far. But if they're a Republican, then they might actually be able to advance part of their agenda. So, registered Republican, contributed thousands of dollars over the last few years to Democratic candidates, both locally and nationwide, including the Barack Obama Super PAC, Obama for America Super PAC back in 2012. Does that not have some kind of red flag pop up on saying, wait a second, something here just isn't right? There's more to it as well. Because now that we have a Ron Estes and a Ron Estes on the ballot, how are we going to distinguish between the two? Now, once in a while, depending on the ballots, that sometimes there's the little I right there for incumbent, knowing that that's the one, but you have to be able to distinguish themselves. Now, Ron M. Estes is the new challenger, is going to be on the ballot as Ron M. Estes. The big kerfluffle that's coming up now is that Congressman Ron Estes is going to be on the ballot and has requested to be on the ballot, or at least allowed to be on the ballot, as Rep. Ron Estes, REP Ron Estes, to show that he is the representative as a distinguisher. And that was approved by Chris Kobach. Now the Democrats are up in arms about that, because they think that it's going to play favorably to him and it's not going to be a fair election, and so on and so forth, which completely just muddies up the entire situation again. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to get your phone calls on this. But a Republican who's been a registered Republican over the last few years, now contributing to numerous different candidates on the Democratic side, including James Thompson against Ron Estes last year, coming in last minute. The Republican Party coming out, Kelly Arnold coming out saying, we've never talked to him, I don't know anything about him, we're trying to reach out, and we don't have any information on him, have not been able to contact him. Here's the real kicker. Talk about openness and transparency in this entire election, is that Ron M. Estes, when he filed to run and filed for the seat to run in the primary, did not even give any contact information for himself, gave one phone number to his wife. Only one media outlet has been able to contact Ellen Estes, that pretty much gave that same quote as what we read on their campaign website, and said, please do not come to our home because we'd like our privacy. That's it. Has not talked to the public, has not done any interviews, has not actually come out and announced what he's doing and what he's campaigning on and what he's running on. This is nothing more to me than a sabotage of the campaign because they're so desperate to get rid of conservatism or republicanism in any way, shape, or form that they will go to the lowness. We talked about earlier about the Democrats and the progressives really not having any standard of common sense or ethics or morals or any sense because they don't care. They'll even go and just protest and get arrested intentionally twice in a week because they get the opportunity to do so. And because they don't care anymore. Their give a damn's been broken, per se. Because they don't care anymore. They will do whatever it takes to win, regardless of the consequences. And if we go and openly try to sabotage a campaign to try and muddy it up, to try and confuse voters, then that is dirty politicking. And if the Democrats are in any way, shape, or form involved in this, which I'm not saying they are, but if the Democrats are involved in this in any way, shape, or form, then you should be ashamed of yourselves because this is dirty politicking. At least let us be able to talk to the individual. The phone lines are open for Ron M Estes to come on this show and talk about not just why you're running and why the last minute and why the secrecy, but why the lack of transparency in your filing, the lack of platform, the lack of bio to let us know exactly who you are and what you plan on doing with this. Why you have a record of being able to donate to numerous different Democrats throughout the years as a registered Republican and then trying to run against Congressman Ron Estes. Very fascinating. The plot thickens, so to speak, and this is happening. I mean, it really makes me wonder how many elections across the nation are going to see this issue, and I guarantee you that one or two more may pop up before the end of this is all said and done, of primaries being challenged by someone with the same name just to try and sabotage the election. I don't know. At this point, I really don't know what to expect from the progressives because they are so desperate that they will do whatever they can to win, which even means if they end up cheating or end up bending the rules just a little bit just to try and dirty up the politics. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts on all of this. 316-721-8255, 316-721, talk at line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Eddie, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I think you're right on the money, as you always have been. Oh, by the way, I must say that with Jim Howell was actually awesome this morning.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's great info. I love
10 beautiful
with him.
gold stars for you. And also the one with the city commissioner is awesome also. Another 10 gold stars for you.
Thank you. I
you
appreciate
always come
that.
through. I'm being very sincere. It's really awesome. I just wish that somehow I could wave a magic wand and make the elections pure because it's absolutely essential that we have beautiful, honest elections. Now, this other Ron M Estes, the Democrats put him up to this. The chicane, and I think it's just horrible. And I just wish that we had some way that our elections could just be pure instead of just...
I mean, this is sleazy, isn't it?
Yeah. That's what's so disappointing, that it's sleazy. And I don't like to think of my politicians as being sleazy. I want my politicians to be honest, but... Mm-hmm. But anyway...
I mean, now, if he's a Republican who's legitimately, honestly, his name's Ron M Estes and says, you know what, I didn't care for Congressman Ron Estes because he, voted on certain policy issues and certain legislation that I didn't agree with, and I'm going to try and challenge him, and it was legit, and it was, the full information, and, whatever, then this would be a different thing. But the fact that it came last minute, no one knows who this individual is. He didn't even leave contact information for himself. It's very sketchy on how this is all done. He left the phone number for his wife. The website is very vague. And now we're coming to find out that there's a long laundry list of political contributions that he and his wife had made to all of them, by the way, extreme left Democrats, including Barack Obama and James Thompson. I mean, you start to wonder, where is this coming from and who's putting him up to this?
Well, I just wish there was some means that we could eliminate a true kind. Now, if there was actually an individual, Ron M Estes, that was honestly legitimate and he really wanted to run, I can see it. But when he's just... Now, he's only in the primary, though. Now, does our Ron Estes, the representative, does he have any serious competition?
No, that is the one and only primary challenger that he has. That is the
so it's Ron Estes against Ron Estes.
Yeah, that is the only two that you will see on the Republican primary ballot in August for the Republicans for this seat is Ron Estes and Ron Estes. There's no other Republican challengers in the primary for this race.
Well, I've operated voting booths for many years, and I'll guarantee you people are going to look down at that and see a Ron Estes, and they're just going to put a little check mark there, and they're not going to try to distinguish between the two because they think that possibly it's the exact same person.
And that's what they're going to try and go for, isn't it? Now, again, it's going to be Ron M Estes, and according to, as of right now, with the comments from Secretary of State Chris Kobach's office, is that the incumbent Ron Estes will be able to put the Rep Ron Estes on there, so you'll know it's Representative Ron Estes on, but the Democrats are trying to challenge that one as well. So it's almost like they try and dirty out the politics, shake up the system, corrupt it a little bit by throwing an individual in there like this, and then saying that Ron Estes is not allowed to put the representative in there because that's dirty politicking and you're not allowed to do that. They try, it's almost like they try and create the board game at the rules that they want to, and then they change it as they go about because they're the 3-year-old child that has to win at the end of the game anyways.
It's almost to the point that lately during the past 10, 15 years, have you ever known a Democrat that was, well, actually have you ever known a Democrat that was really, truly honest and pure?
Well, that's the question.
The only one in Sedgwick County that was that Democrat that was the mayor of Tim Norton. Tim Norton was a Democrat, but he was so pure at heart. I mean, I just love the guy. He was a Democrat, but he was a very, very honest man.
Sure.
And that's about the only one I know. Anyway, I'm afraid it's going to be up to you to spread the word.
Well, we're going to do the best that we can. Eddie, I love it. I appreciate it. And thanks for the kind words, my friend. I appreciate that very much. We're going to do what we can. And now, if this is a legit contender, then we'll interview him and we'll talk to him just like any other candidate. But so far, hasn't talked to the public, hasn't talked to the media, hasn't talked to anybody, has directed him towards his wife, and then comes out with a simple little statement on his one-page website trying to say that he's going to run and contend and challenge Representative Ron Estes in this race. I see the red flags popping up and the shenanigans all over the place. What do you see in this? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right on this one. I want to get your thoughts. 316-721-8255. Got some more calls on the line. Stay here. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. 26 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
I gotta say, isn't it sad that we always have to be on our toes like this when it comes to an election and when it comes to some of the politics? It really kind of bugs me. Got the calls lined up. Stay here. Bottom of the hour news coming back. We'll get with you your phone call as soon as we come back from this break. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The fastest growing radio show in Kansas.
What? How'd you do that?
That's what I'm talking about.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah, making it happen. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. 36 minutes past the hour. As we wrap up the show today, it's open line to you, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Again, if you've missed part of the show, that's a conversation about Ron Estes v. Ron Estes. Kind of an interesting one, as Ron M Estes challenging Congressman Ron Estes in this race. Been a lifelong, apparently at least for the last 7 years, in Sedgwick County, registered Republican, him and his wife, but in those past 7 years as well, and even longer, contributing to Democrats by the thousands of dollars. Over $1,100, by the way, to James Thompson, the progressive socialist candidate that ran against Congressman Ron Estes in the special election last year. $400 to the Barack Obama for America Super PAC in 2012, among other political contributions, Paul Davis and some other Democrats throughout the entire state of Kansas. So there it is. No information other than that, other than he's been registered, given lots of money to Democrats as a Republican, never ran for office, and very vague information on the campaign website, very vague information when it comes to the contact information for them. Again, when they filed for the political filings for the office, didn't even give a phone number to himself or anything, just a phone number to his wife, who's been screening the calls and kind of blocking everything there. The website that they have, the website realronestes.com, other than the press release saying that they announced, no information there as well. The logo they have for Ron Estes is very similar to Congressman Ron Estes' logo, other than having the real word on there for the real Ron Estes. Very fishy to me, and it seems very... now, the fact that Democrats are all up in arms of the fact that the ballot may have rep on there for Representative Ron Estes on the ballot, and they're all, well, you can't do that. You can't have something like that. No, because according to Kansas statute 25-619, says that names on the ballot can't have a title, degree, or symbol of accomplishment on the ballot. Yet, there is also another statute that says that the Secretary of State gets to decide how to decipher between two people if they have the same name. And Ron M Estes, which, let me ask you something. And by the way, Laura Lombard, running for the 2nd Congressional District, is the Democrat trying to file the complaint on this because, it's going to try and sway people to vote for him. Really? I'm pretty sure with how partisan it is right now that if you don't like Congressman Ron Estes because you're a Democrat, then you're probably not going to vote for the one that says Representative Ron Estes. Just saying. So is that going to encourage people to vote for? I mean, you already have the I in front of there for incumbent on there, but Eddie's right with the last call. Eddie's right that a lot of people just go into the ballot and, Ron Estes, they just click on the first one and they're good. That's the point of why the sabotage, in my opinion, is happening. Or do you have another take on it? Let's go to the phone, shall we? 316-721-8255, line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hello, my name is Martin.
Martin, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine.
Good.
The left is obviously up to their dirty tricks. I received a call over the weekend from a group with a Kansas City area code wanting me to donate to candidates for breast cancer research. Now, who wouldn't want to donate to that? And then I pressed the young lady on the phone, just who were those candidates, and she hung up on me.
So wait, so they're asking for political contributions to candidates who are going to support breast cancer research?
Correct.
I've never even heard of something like that, because usually it's a nonprofit organization, or it's an individual campaign that says, hey, help me donate to this campaign and this individual, so that way when they get in there, they can fight for this kind of issue like breast cancer. But just saying, if you like fighting breast cancer research, then donate to us and then we'll disperse it amongst different candidates, but we're not going to tell you which ones it is.
Exactly. That's when she hung up.
Oh, wow. I got to say, that's a new one, and the dirty old tricks in there, because, I wonder what side is going to... Now, again, I mean, I would like to say that Republicans, Democrats, conservative, liberals alike, everybody would say, let's try and fight breast cancer and try and do some research and do breast cancer awareness or whatever. But the side that's going to dump a bunch of money into a government program to try and do it, I wonder what side that could potentially be.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Good show, Andy.
Thank you, Martin. I appreciate that. Wow, I've never heard that one either. So there you go, another piece of the political scandals happening here in the state of Kansas. If you support breast cancer awareness, please donate money today. Okay, where's it going to go? Well, it's kind of up in the air. I almost wonder if that's not some kind of scam there. Who's it going to? Well, it's disclosed. They don't really want to give their name because they're ashamed of it or something. I don't know. That's an odd one there. Appreciate it very much, Martin. Let's go back to the phones, line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Jim, what's going on, sir?
Well, I'm thinking back to the McCain run for the presidency, and he won all these primaries in states which had open primaries where anybody could just walk in and vote.
Sure.
And they didn't declare a party. And then, of course, as soon as he won the election, the nomination, the news media, everybody turned against him, and we got Barack Obama. The Democrats will, put somebody up on purpose in the primaries to weaken the Republican candidate, and that's what this is going on right now. This guy saying, I'm the real Estes.
Mm-hmm.
No, the real Estes is the guy that's in office right now.
Oh, right. But if people don't know this or they don't necessarily follow it as much, they're going to say, "Oh, the real Ron Estes. Oh, okay, it must be the real Ron Estes, the guy that's already in there. Or what's going on?"
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose. It's not about obviously a platform or anything. It's about trying to sabotage and see if they can squeak enough votes in or screw up enough people to confuse them in the vote to not understand who they're voting for. Yeah.
Here's the thing: the parties, the Republican Party, doesn't get a chance to say, "No, we don't want this guy to be a Republican." What was the guy down in Alabama or Louisiana that was in the KKK and a Democrat, and he decided to call himself a Republican? And the Republican Party has, said, "Well, no, we don't want him. We don't want him." But there's no power to throw anybody out of the party and claim they're in the party.
Right.
And that's what's going on right now with this guy. He's, as you say, he's donated all his money to Democrats.
But now he's been a registered Republican. And in the state of Kansas,
that's a phoney. That's just
right.
Kansas has a closed primary, and you can't vote for the bad candidate.
Right. You're not able to go and vote for the other side's primary just because, we do have the closed, we have the caucuses now to where you have to go to the caucus of the party that you affiliate with in order to go there and actually have a voice. And this is the way. Look at the state legislature to where there are many Republicans that actually run in districts as quote unquote Republicans, but openly say, I got progressive tendencies. I want to raise taxes. I want to increase your spending. I'm going to work with Democrats bipartisan simply, and that way vote for me, but I'm going to be as a Republican. We saw the pins in the last election that said proud to be a rhino because they embrace it. They know that as a D in front of their name as a Democrat is very difficult to get elected in the state of Kansas, and that a Republican's much easier. And it's our due diligence as the constituents and as the voters to understand not only that there's an R or a D in front of their name, but what they actually stand for, to change that a little bit, but they understand it. And if they're able to not only get a more progressive-minded individual in as a Republican, that's going to shake things up a little bit. Then do it as the same name. Oh, man, I tell you what, then you're going to go in there, you're not going to go who you're voting for, and then let's just say, worst case scenario, that a progressive liberal ends up getting in as Ron Estes in the general election, then guess what? The Democrats have it won, because then they either get Ron Estes or they get James Thompson, or Ron M Estes, let me say, as opposed to current Congressman Ron Estes. It's trickery. It's dirty politics. It's sleazy. And if the Democrats are behind it, they should really be ashamed of themselves. But again, they're not going to be ashamed of themselves because they really don't have any standards they hold themselves to any longer. Many of them, not all of them, many of them. Let's go back to the phones, 316-721-8255. Line number 3, good morning. What's your name?
Morning, brother. It's Joe.
Joe, what's going on, sir?
Hey, do you remember the Eddie Murphy movie about this very thing? There is an Eddie Murphy made a movie. He wants to run for Congress, and his name is exactly like the candidates, except for one letter off. Look it up. I'm telling you, Google it right now. There's a movie that's exactly about this exact same thing, and he wins because of the simple fact that he's able to. People they don't know which one to vote for, so they see his name pop up. It's the first one because his letter's before the other one, his middle initial or something's before the other one, and he wins Congress because of just that exact same thing.
Because of a little hiccup like that.
Exactly.
Wow, I was not aware of that movie.
The Democrats, I'm telling you, it's out there. And it's actually got a political thing. It's got a political thing behind it. It's about power lines and leukemia and some other things. But look it up. There's
the Distinguished Gentleman. Is that it?
There you go. That's it.
The Distinguished Gentleman. Now, this one, just from reading the brief description about using the same name as a deceased former elected official and using that same name. But you're right. I mean,
it's
getting
6 to 1, half a dozen the other, brother. 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. He's still doing deception, and he should be ashamed of himself. The Democrats, once again, show their true colors because they have nothing. They've run on the same platform for 100 years, so they have nothing new to do. They have nothing new. They can't go and flip and go, hey, we're all for jobs and fair trade and all this. It wouldn't work.
Oh, come on, Joe. They do have something new. Something new this year is if we get in, we're going to impeach President Donald Trump.
Really?
That's their new platform.
You're gonna stop the you're gonna stop the steamroller the things that's making America great again, you're going to stop that. That's what you really, and I can't believe Pelosi and them guys are actually standing on a platform and saying, we want to raise your taxes.
Sure.
Are you insane? Are you insane? Look at
They don't have standards any longer. Like I said, I mean, with 2 weeks in a row, 20 people almost getting arrested up in Topeka, one in Chris Kobach's office, one in Jeff Collier's office on Monday for the Poor People's Campaign because they don't care any longer. With the Democrats openly saying that we need to repeal the Second Amendment and openly saying that as an open campaign now, openly saying that we're going to raise your taxes and impeach President Trump if we get the majority in Congress. They don't have a level of sneakiness anymore. They are open and very transparent about their agenda of what they want to do because they're tired of waiting. They've lost the FDR mentality of doing this long-term, through the administrative state and doing this as a chipping away at their goal for the ends, meets the means, that sort of thing. They're now doing it as saying, we're tired, we're anxious, we want to change it right now, and we will be the socialist, we will be the fringe, we will be the angry individuals, and if you vote for Donald Trump, you are a closed-minded, bigoted racist, and if we get in, we will repeal or impeach him, even if he's technically done nothing wrong. We're going to make it up. And oh, by the way, yes, we will raise your taxes. We will repeal the Second Amendment, and we will do whatever it takes to make that agenda happen, even if it's the dirty politics, like trying to put somebody else into a primary with the same name just to confuse voters because, what the heck not? It's just the sleazy way to do it, but why not?
That is just absolutely shameful. They want to turn America into Russia, too. That's exactly what they want to do, and it's just absolutely shameful. I don't know how they sleep at night. Well, they probably don't. They probably stay up all night. And I don't know, but it's just.
Well, maybe that's why they're so grumpy all the time.
Maybe lack of sleep. Maybe they should take an Ambien or something and actually get some real sleep. I don't know. I don't understand these people's mentality of. You live in the greatest nation in the world. It's been said over and over and over again, and you want to screw it up. Why? Why do you want to screw it up?
Because the grass is always greener over. They say the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. I always say the grass is greener over the septic tank because even though you think it's great, that's where it's actually getting its nutrition from. But they want us to be like Europe. They want us to be like. Now, again, if this is a legitimate.
Do they swim in that septic tank or what?
Well, why do you think there are some with so few brain cells? I mean, I'm just saying. Now, again, if this is a legitimate candidate that's a Republican wants to do Republican things, then we'll take it serious. But with 10 years of political contribution records going towards Democrats, of having no record, of not even putting their personal information on the file for the office and giving his wife's name, screening it, not having background, not talking to constituents. We don't know who this guy is. It's very shady, isn't it?
How much more shady can you get?
You would think.
You ought to just play that Slim Shady song, that Eminem Slim Shady, because that's what it sounds like. That should be his theme song. I'm Slim Shady. There you go. That's his thing. Every time you mention his name, Slim Shady should be played.
You know what? I think you're absolutely right. And if we do get him on the show, that'll be the introductory right there. So
I love it. Brother, have a great and blessed day, man. Keep up the good work. We love you. God bless you, brother.
I love it, Joe. Appreciate the call very much, my friend. I don't know. There's something just not right there. Something's not clicking. And again, if it is just trying to confuse voters, just try and take some away, then we need to be very cautious, number one, when we go to the voting booth. Number two, we need to remember the sleaziness of what's happening just to try and sabotage candidates just because the opposition doesn't like the way they are, because they're big meanie heads. Let's go back to the phones. What do you say? Line number 4. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, what's going on?
Well, I want to pipe into all of this. The Lord warned us thousands of years ago to watch out for wolves in sheep's clothing. And he says that in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 and 12, it says, put on the whole armor, the whole Word of God armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles or the methods of deception of the devil, Satan. 12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, which is political precedents, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual or intellectual wickedness in high places. So we're in a war. We're in a war against these people. They want to try to deceive us and trick us and everything like that, and put on they're wolves in sheep's clothing. It's just, we got to be wiser than the serpent.
Well, that's what we have to do. Helen, I appreciate it. Got to take a break, but I mean, now I'm not going to say this individual is like Satan in the sheep's clothing, but I mean, the same idea and the concept is valid when we have to be aware on what's going on, because there's going to be that deceitfulness happening right now to be able to promote a certain agenda. And if they're going to try and deceive us as the voters because of a name change or of a name uniqueness and trying to just try and sabotage the election, then that's something that we need to call out, we need to expose, and we need to be very well aware of when we go to that voting booth in just a few months for these primaries. Got to take a break. 7 minutes to the top of the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Attention, please. Will the real Slim Shady please stand up?
Uh-oh.
I repeat, will the real Slim Shady please stand up? We're going to have a problem here.
That's actually pretty good. Well done. Well done. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up the program today. We'll keep that one in mind as we continue this conversation, getting closer and closer to the primaries in just a few months away. We got to stay aware. We got to stay alert. Let's make this happen. Let's advance conservatism. Let's not allow the shenanigans of the left to try to corrupt our side, because that is not acceptable in these elections. The dirtiness, the sleaziness will no longer be tolerated. There it is. All right, there you go. All right. I can honestly say I've never listened to a whole lot of that stuff, but nonetheless, that's relatively appropriate for this one. As we wrap up today, we got a lot to get to tomorrow. Stay tuned. Thursday, we're getting closer to the end of the week. The election time is getting closer as more of this stuff advances. Plus, it's time for us to be on the up and up when it comes to some of the policy making in our area. As always, we love the phone calls. We love all the conversations. Appreciate you tuning in very much so each and every morning. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason, baby. This is The Voice of Reason. Everybody have a great Wednesday.